So let's start today's session. So today we are going to see one of the important class for MCSE. And today we try to discuss about DHCP, what is DHCP, how DHCP works on the network, how to configure and how to use the DHCP in our company. So before we understand what is DHCP and how to configure, again, this topic, as I told you, it is completely depends on IP address. Okay. So IP address plays a very, very important role. So without IP, there is nothing. Okay. So when you talk about IP address, so before we do that, first we need to understand types of addresses. So when you say like types of address, so whenever if you connect a device may be computer, device may be router, device may be a server. So whenever you connect a device on a network, so the machine is going to maintain two types of address. Okay. So maybe a computer, it may be a server. So this machine, I'll be connecting to network from cable. So here we have a LAN card and the cable I'll be connecting here. So this LAN card, it is going to maintain two types of address. One of the address of cards, we have MAC address, and the next we have IP, and both addresses are compulsory, mandatory. So without IP, without MAC address, there is nobody available in network. Okay. So apart from two, last time I told you like one of the address is by default available, no need to give by ourselves. So the default address we call MAC address, and IP address will be given by the admin of company. So this is our responsibility to go each and every device to configure IP address. Okay. So MAC address used by switches for unicasting, and IP address used by devices for communication. Okay. So IP address helps your device to identify on a network. It is going to participate, and with the help of IP address, there will be a communication. Okay. So IP is like a language, like the way you use language for communication. Same thing, network also, the devices they communicate with the help of certain IP address. So IP plays very, very important role. Okay. So even last time in detail we discussed about MAC address. So now let's talk about IP. So again, IP address we have two types. One of the IP we have public IP as well as a private IP. Public will be given by ISP for internet connection. So whenever you want to access anything over the internet, you need to have a public IP. Whereas private IP we use for a local communication or free communication. So within a network, if you want to communicate, you can configure a private IP. Okay. So even we talk about the ranges also. Like if you want to, if you are making a local network and if you want to configure IP from our side. So from class A, what IP we need, from class B, what IP we need, from class C, what IP we need. So even we also discuss about the ranges. Okay. So today we also have a question. So IP, it is not by default available. IP you have to configure. Okay. So IP address will be given by administrator of a company. Okay. So that means if you want to assign IP address on a machine, okay, it may be you are giving IP on one machine, maybe two machine, maybe three machine, or maybe hundreds of machines. So this is our responsibility. So when you want to configure IP address, so IP will be given by admin. So for administrator, there will be two types of methods. Okay. So either admin use method, we call it as static IP, means there is a static method, or you can also use a dynamic method. So we have two types of methods. One is called static, one is called dynamic. Static, if you go each and every machine manually, you can configure IP address manually by yourself. So that method we call as static IP. And we also give IP address automatic, and that IP address will be given with the help of DHCP. Okay. So till now, whenever we configure IP address for our last classes, we only discuss about like static. Manually we go and we configure IP according to the scenario. So network, we need static IP. We also require a dynamic IP. Okay. So that means if you want to configure a dynamic method, so you need to configure one service. The name of the service we call as DHCP. So now let us understand at what situation we use static IP and what situation we use dynamic. Okay. So what is the use of static IP as well? What is the use of a dynamic IP? Now let's say today I go market. From the market I purchase a switch, and on the top of switch I connect some group of computers. The machine I'm connecting. So this machine I have to connect cable. The physical connectivity is compulsory so that it is going to get connected on the network. Apart from physical, now every machine require IP address. Okay. So here, shall we use static IP or dynamic? Okay. So remember, whenever if you have a small network where you can have like 4 or 5 machines, maybe 10 machines, 20 machines. So for me, it's very easy. I can go every device and I can give IP like this. I can give IP here. I can give IP here. Okay. So for me, it's very simple to go every device and I can give IP. So somebody I'll give IP like 10.1.1.1. Somebody I'll give 10.1.1.2. Somebody 10.1.1.3. Somebody 10.1.4. And somebody I'll give some 10.1.5. Okay. So that means like every device personally I'll go and I'll give IP. Okay. So if I'm giving IP address manually here, so this IP we call permanent IP. Okay. Permanent means this IP will not be changed unless until you manually go and manually change. Okay. So this method we call as static method. So static method is useful whenever you have a small kind of network. Okay. So if you have like 10 machine, 20 machine, maybe I have 2 computers. So in that time, we don't have any advantage of DHCP. So we use DHCP if you have a big network. So instead of like having 10 to 20 machines, now let's say if I give another scenario, so I'll be having a company. In that company, like let's say I have 2,000 machines. Okay. So these 2,000 devices are not only connected to one particular floor. So I'll be having like 5 to 10 floor building. So maybe let's say this is a 5-floor building, and complete 5 floor I have connected different floor. I also have different devices. So every floor I'll be having hundreds and thousands of devices. So we'll be having all the devices here, connect every device, and connectivity we have a switch. And this machine, not only they are connected physically, even now they need IP address. Okay. Suppose if you start giving IP address manually, okay. So how much time we need? I'll be having 2,000 machine and we need to configure IP address static. So how much time we need here? Okay. So if you want to configure IP on a single machine, so single machine, how much time you need? Okay. Now instead of like 1-2 machine, now I'll be having 2,000 machine. Okay. So normally it is not possible for administrator to go each and every machine to configure IP address manually. Okay. Why? Because so if you have a small network, okay, manually you can go, but because you have 2-3 machine, 5 machine, 10 machine, so for you it's easy. You can go all the machine, you can configure IP. And the main reason like for static IP is static is a permanent IP. So giving 4-5 machine IP, 10 machine IP, or 20 computers IP, now we don't have a very big deal. But instead of like 10, 20, now if you have 1 to 2,000, the devices, and devices we are not having only computers. devices. Maybe you have laptop devices. You maybe also have, the IT phone devices. You may have the printer. So multiple devices you may have an on network. Okay. So every device I need IP address so that it is going to be participate. And it is not easy for administrator to all the time go every device and configure IP address manually. So what actually we can do on the network, we just we try to configure one server. On the top of server, we install one service. The service we call DHCP. Okay. So the first advantage of DHCP is by using DHCP, now IP address can centrally manage on a network. That means now instead of giving every machine, means instead of going to each and every device manually, now from DHCP, IP address can automatically given, and whatever IP given on a network, let's say DHCP has given some IP to this machine, DHCP given IP to this machine. So whatever IP given, the information of that IP maintained by DHCP. Okay. So apart from 2000, what IP will be given to which machine? Now that the database, it is going to maintain by the DHCP server. Okay. So with the help of database, now IP address can be centrally managed. So here I can say like, okay, this device, what IP is available, that device, what IP is available. Now it's easy. Okay. Now one of the advantages for using DHCP is it reduces likelihood of a human error. Okay. So if you start giving IP address manually, so as a human being, so we can do many mistakes. What happens like if you give same IP to multiple devices, okay? So whatever IP I have given to this machine, let's say I give IP here 10.1.1. So 10.1.1.10, and one of the floor I'll go and I want to give IP here. So 10.1.10. 10. So I supposed to give this IP, but instead of that, what by mistake what I did here, maybe I have given again 1.10. So if you do mistake like this, so the IP which is already given and the same IP you have given to multiple devices, it's not only one. So if you give this range IP to multiple devices, so now these computers and this computer, they are not going to be participated, and it's very difficult for administrator to see like to whom you have given same IP. Okay. So this kind of problem will not be done by DHCP. So what the DHCP will do, whenever DHCP gives IP to any device, so the same IP is never assigned to the other machine. Okay. Once it's given, so that IP range, it will remove from assigning range, and that will be maintained on, the database. Okay. And one of the most important reasons like why we use DHCP, it reduce amount of administration time. Okay. So instead of spending lot of days or lot of hours on a machine to provide IP address, to remember IP address, and to distribute IP, so what actually we can do? So simply you configure DHCP. So DHCP give IP within fraction of seconds to all the devices. And remember, whenever requests come to DHCP, so DHCP never understand all the people like, now this computer belongs to my domain, this is a router, this is a server, this is, a printer, or each and every device. So whenever requests come to DHCP, so only the duty of DHCP to give IP. It may be a router, it may be, server, it may be a printer. So the duty of DHCP is only to provide the IP address. Okay. So DHCP is a service. So DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, and DHCP is not totally new in 2016. DHCP is coming from NT servers. Okay. So that was very old service, and this service now it's become one of the mandatory parts in our network. Okay. So there is no network without DHCP, and even in today's time we also use Wi-Fi network, wireless network. Okay. So wireless and Wi-Fi, it is completely depends on DHCP categories. Okay. So if you configure a wireless router, so that wireless router try to configure, try to give the IP address. It may be your smartphone, it may be your laptop, it may be your devices that you have in a network. With the help of those IP address, you are going to access the internet, and so that will be connecting to your router. Okay. Similarly, so what the DHCP will do? So DHCP is a service of Windows operating system that is especially used for assigning IP configuration. And remember, DHCP, I'm not saying it is only for giving IP address. Okay. So DHCP use IP configuration. So the meaning of IP configuration is nothing but, okay. So whenever you try to configure IP address, so IP address, whenever you open the network connection, so here if I go to the properties of LAN card and we select the version IPv4, so here you can see there will be some multiple options. Okay. In that multiple option, one of the options we call IP address. Okay. So what is IP? This is called IP address. IP along with subnet mask, this is called IP address. What about this? So apart from IP address, we also have another option here, default gateway, that is a router IP. We also have another option here, DNS. Okay. So IP doesn't mean like only 10.1.1.2. Okay. So if you use only 10.1.1.2, so with the help of that particular number, now the machine is not going to participate in a domain network. Okay. So maybe it will communicate, but if you want to use your device on a company network, so the machine need to have multiple addresses. Okay. One of the address we need like router IP. You also need a DNS IP, or you also require like alternate DNS. So what is IP configuration? So IP configuration means the complete configuration. Okay. So DHCP, it is not only using for giving IP address. Okay. If I said DHCP use only for assigning IP, then who will give router IP? Who will give the DNS address? Okay. So that means we cannot say, okay, DHCP give router IP, then manually we have to go every device and configure router IP, DNS IP. No, it's not like that. DHCP can give everything. Okay. So whenever any computer needs IP address, DHCP try to give all IP configuration to the client. So DHCP, you give all the IP configuration to the computers that are available in the network, and it uses a least duration. And remember, one thing always you need to remember. So one of the methods we have seen, static. So static is one of the methods we call it as static means a permanent. So that IP never change. Okay. So this IP I have already given, and even if I check today, so for me the computer showing this is 10.1.1.2. This is called a static IP, use following IP. Apart from that, we also have another option here, obtain IP address automatic. Okay. So whenever you need a dynamic IP, if you need automatic IP, so what the machine will do? Now this computer will automatically contact to DHCP server. From DHCP, automatic the machine get IP. Okay. So whenever this computer got IP, that is not a permanent IP. So that IP we call temporary IP, and that IP change after a period of time. Okay. So the least duration, like the default days, we have 8 days, means the default validity for the IP address which is given by DHCP is by default is 8 days, and minimum you can configure 1 minute, maximum you can configure 999 days, or even you can have unlimited. So that is depends on how you are configuring DHCP in a network. Okay. So let us see first of all how to install DHCP on a network. Then we'll try to discuss on some kind of like what scope and all these things. Okay. So I'll go to my computer. This is my DHCP server, and we need to even understand some kind of configuration. So today we have a domain online MCSE. On the top of online MCSE, I log in, and this is even my domain controller. The machine where I install AD, on the same computer I'll be installing DHCP server. So how to install DHCP? To install DHCP, we need to open Server Manager. Why? Because services we install from Server Manager only. So to install DHCP service, we have to open Server Manager. From Server Manager, we have to click Add Roles and Features. And here all the time I'll tell you, before we begin, the machine will have static IP and all these things. So I'll say next. So role based and feature based, same as it is. Next. So the machine where I'm installing DHCP, the name of the DHCP server will be like DC1, and the IP of DHCP I have given 10.1.1.1, and this is my 2016 standard edition. So next. So the first option, like last time we already discussed about AD, so already Active Directory installed here. So here we need to put check mark to DHCP. But before you put check mark, you have to understand first of all why you are installing this. What's the benefit? What's the advantage? Okay. So the main advantage of DHCP is instead of giving IP address manually to each and every device, now that IP address automatically given by the server. Okay. So dynamic host configuration protocol server enable you to centrally configure, manage, and provide temporary IP address and related information for the client computer. So this service is especially used to configure a temporary IP. So whenever you put check mark any of these service, automatically it also requires a feature. Feature is nothing but it needs some tool to configure, to manage. Okay. So once you install DHCP, you get the option directly on the tools. Okay. So these tools option automatically come from the feature. So here you have to click app features and next. So the next option we have feature. So leave it as it is. So whatever it requires automatically selected from the feature pane. You can go next. And now let us understand some more in detail why we install DHCP, what is the purpose, and as an administrator, whenever you install DHCP in a network, what thing you need to keep in mind. So the first thing, DHCP server allows server to assign or leave IP address to computer and other devices. Okay. So one thing you need to be clear, DHCP we are not using only to distribute IP to computer. Okay. Computer is not only the device. Okay. Apart from computer, DHCP also used to give IP address on different devices. Like if you have a printer, if you have a scanner, if you have IP phone, if you have a tape drive, if you have different devices. So each and every device to whom you want to connect on a network, that machine, the device need IP, so that will be given by DHCP. Okay. So DHCP not only assign IP address, it also assign DHCP option like this allow computer and other devices to connect other resources such as like DNS server, Win server, and router IP. Okay. So that is also compulsory. And thing to be noted, what we need to remember. The first thing, you should have at least one static IP address on this machine. That means the server where you install DHCP, the server should have a static IP. So why you need static IP? So this server is responsible for giving IP to other machines. So who will give IP to this device? So the device should have a static means permanent IP. See, I'm the responsible person. I'll be giving IP to other devices. So who will give IP to me? So I should have a static IP. So before you install DHCP, you should plan your subnet, you should plan your scope, and you also plan your exclusion. Okay. So subnet, you should have idea now how many IP you want DHCP assigned to your network. Okay. So it may be you may have default network, or maybe you may have subnetted network. Okay. Subnetted network means now if you have subnetting concept, then in that time you may have multiple subnetworks. Okay. So one of the things we need to understand here, so how many IP you want DHCP assigned, okay? So that will be depends on your scenario. Let's say I started a company. In a company, suppose I have 200 computers, okay? So my planning here, I want DHCP give all 200 IPs, okay? So in this server, I'm going to make a scope, okay? So a scope is nothing but it's a range of IPs from where DHCP distribute IPs, okay? So how many IP you want DHCP distribute? So you have to make a particular scope. Okay, instead of 100, 200, let's say in a company I have 2000 IP, I'm going to make a scope. Okay, if you have multiple networks, you can make multiple scopes. And okay, so store the plan in safe place for the later reference. Okay, so here even I can also show you the definition for scope. What is scope? Scope is nothing but a range of IP address assigned to client computer that reside on a single network. Single network means we'll be talking about one particular network. Now, if you have multiple networks, you can have multiple scope. And if you combine multiple scope, we call it as super scope. So it's the range of valid IP assigned to the computer and that reside on multiple networks. So you can go next here and install. So it will be installing. And how DHCP works. Okay. To understand again, I already have a scenario here. Okay. So what actually happened here? So whenever if you connect a devices, so this is my domain controller. We in a network we have Exchange server, we have DHCP, we have SQL server, we have application, we have Hyper-V, multiple servers we have on a network. So one of the client, if you go and if you select like opt-in IP address automatic, so what will happen here? So when you select opt-in IP address, so the machine will not directly contact to DHCP. Okay. So what actually happens? So when you select opt-in, now this machine automatically broadcasts. Okay. So the complete process of DHCP is based on broadcasting. Broadcasting means background, we have a process. The process we call as DORA process. Okay. So either you say DORA or you can say four-way handshaking process. Okay. So once you select opt-in IP address, so what the machine will do? Now this machine, the client, it is going to broadcast and that broadcast packet sent to DHCP. So broadcast nothing but, so the request maybe go to domain controller, the request also go to exchange, the request go to each and every machine in network, but nobody is going to respond. So at the same time, the request is also coming to DHCP. So this machine, it is not requesting only DHCP to give IP. You know what the machine is doing? So this computer, the client, it is going to discover the DHCP. Okay. So it is going to send a discovery packet. I need IP address. I need the IP address. Please somebody give. So that discovery packet will come to DHCP. So what the DHCP will do? Now the DHCP is going to respond. The domain controller will not respond. The exchange will not respond. The SQL server will not respond on a network. So when a request comes to DHCP, now DHCP is going to respond. Respond in the sense, now DHCP is going to offer to the client. Okay, you need IP. I have all IPs. I have all, I have the ranges of IP. Now you can pick up any one IP. Okay. So after offering the IP to the client, so what the computer will do? Now the client, it is going to request IP address. Okay. The client is going to request one IP from DHCP. So when you get a request, so what the DHCP will do? DHCP is going to acknowledge. Okay, you want that IP? Why? Because DHCP have range of IP. So whatever the IP we have here, so from the top, it is going to provide the IP address. So it is going to acknowledge, okay, I'm giving that IP and that IP is going to be expired. What IP I'm giving? So the DHCP is going to maintain all the database of the device, to whom I'm giving, what IP I'm giving, when IP is going to be expired, what is the MAC address of the device. You will be having some information. Okay. That process we call DORA process. Okay. So don't think like simply just connect computer automatically get IP. So background also there is a process. Okay. So how the DHCP give IP? Based on the scenario. So you have to select opt-in IP address. Okay. And DHCP works on two port number. One is 67 and 68. So regarding port number, maybe in coming session, I'll show you in detail. So what is port number? How many port number we have? And what is the use of port number in a network? Okay. So that is a very, very important one. Okay. So this is how DHCP works. Okay. So each and every computer, they need IP, and whenever you select opt-in IP address, the computer will automatically forward a request to DHCP, and DHCP is going to offer the the range of IP. Then the client is going to request for the IP that DHCP is going to acknowledge. So that is called a DORA process: discover, offer, request, acknowledge. So once you install DHCP, now what is our first step? Okay, we already installed. We just went to server manager. We put a check mark to DHCP. So what is our first step? So step by step, I'll show you. Maybe if I go here, you can see These are the steps. So first we need to install DHCP. After the installation, the next step you have to authorize DHCP. Authorizing, let's see. So before we understand, now let's talk about reservation. Okay. Now DHCP we use to distribute IPs, and with the help of DHCP server, not only it is going to assign IP, we can also reserve IP of a particular device. So again, we can see the scenario. Somewhere here, let's say I have a DHCP, and that is also connected to my switch. Okay. So when you configure DHCP, so DHCP starts giving IP to all the devices. Okay. So as an admin, what actually we do here? So DHCP is giving IP to all the devices. Let's say in a network there is a device. So let's say I have a computer here, PC20. DHCP has some range. The range may be like 10.1.1 to 10.1.1. Let's say 200. Okay. This machine requests IP to DHCP. DHCP has given IP 10. This machine requests IP address. DHCP has given IP 5. So that means DHCP start giving IP address in a serial order. Somebody give 1, somebody 2, somebody 3, somebody 4, like this. From each and every IP will be given on a serial order. Okay. Now, similarly, now let's say one of the machine available here. So whenever request come to DHCP, DHCP assign IP address from itself. Means whatever the IP which is free, so that IP will be given to this client. Okay. So I'm the administrator. What I want, I don't want DHCP give any IP to this device. Okay. So from DHCP, what I can do, I can assign a special IP. I'll say whenever you get a request from PC20, don't give any IP. Don't give IP like maybe 5 or 6 or 10. So what I do in DHCP, I'll reserve IP. Okay. Reserve in the sense, now I'll go DHCP and I'll say, okay, whenever you get a request from PC20, now give this IP 10.1.1.20. Okay. So from complete range from 1 to 200, whoever requests IP, DHCP can distribute any IP. But when you get a request from PC20, you have to give IP 10.1.1.20. That means from the complete entire range, I'm going to reserve one of the IP for a particular device. That is called a reservation. Okay. Let's say if the computer is not available, okay, if you are not getting any request from PC20, even this IP will not be given to anybody. That is called a reservation. Reserve means now that IP will be available only for that particular device. And we also have authorization. Authorizing is very also important. How we can understand this? Now let's say you have multiple DHCP. These are the clients. Now let's say in a network I have multiple DHCP. So this is my domain controller, and this is my first DHCP, DHCP1, and this is my DHCP2. So one of the machine I'll go and I'll say obtain IP address. So who will give IP to this computer? The DHCP which is near to this computer, or the DHCP which is on the right side or left side. So who will give IP address to that computer? Or the computer get 2 IPs. If you have 2 DHCP, you get 2 IPs. No, it's not like that. Okay, so this machine will be getting only 1 IP. Okay, let's say if the machine, when you select option, if a request coming to this DHCP, the DHCP will give IP. Or if the request coming to this DHCP, now that DHCP will give IP. Okay, but remember, when you install DHCP, one of the responsibility of administrator, you have to authorize. Okay. Authorize means authorize help the DHCP. It is going to register the information of DHCP server in Active Directory domain. Okay. So that's why no illegal DHCP we can use in a network. Okay. So unless until you authorize, when you select opt-in, the request come to DHCP. Even when you get a request, you also responsible for response. Okay. So when DHCP responds, when you authorize. Okay. So simply just installing DHCP or just configuring DHCP is not enough unless until you authorize. Now the DHCP is not going to respond to the client. Okay. So when you select opt-in IP address, suppose if the request coming to this DHCP, now automatically if the DHCP is authorized, you get the IP address. So if you already get IP, so this machine will not broadcast again to get another IP from another DHCP. Why? Because the client doesn't know how many DHCP is available. Okay. Simply we get an IP. Now you can able to communicate on a network. Okay. Sometimes the situation come like if you have two DHCP, in that time first come first service. Okay. If this DHCP you get a request first, you get IP. If this DHCP get a request first, again you can get IP. Now the last question here: if both the DHCP are unauthorized, or maybe let's say in a network I don't have DHCP, simply I'll go and I'll select opt-in IP address. So what will happen here? So if there is no DHCP and if you go and if you select opt-in IP address, so what the computer will do? Now this computer will generate one IP address from itself. That IP address we call as a PIPA. Automatic private IP address. And whenever you go any machine and when you write IP config, suppose if you are getting IP address from a range 169.254, that means that is a PIPA address. So that is not a static IP and that is not a dynamic IP. Example. Now practically I'll show you this. Okay. So I just installed, even I don't have DHCP configuration here. So I'll go to my client here. So this is one of my clients. Suppose I'll go and I'll select opt-in IP address. And I'll say OK. So once you click OK, what this machine will do? Now this machine automatically broadcast. It will try to forward a request to DHCP. But right now in my network there is no DHCP. Then what will happen? And one more thing you need to remember. When you use VMware application, in VMware application also by default there is DHCP service enabled. You have to disable that. Okay. Now what will happen? Now if I go and if I write IP config, so this computer you see the computer got IP address from 192.168.71.129. He got IP. So who has given this IP? So this IP given by DHCP of your VMware. How we can disable that? So you have to go the settings of your virtual machine. And before you go, you have to see like what setting you are using for your LAN card. Okay. So right now I'm using NAT. See, I'll be using category NAT. So what we need to do, you have to go edit and you have to go virtual network editor. See, this is the VMware. I'm not doing anything in virtual machine. Why? Because this computer got IP address from my VMware application. Okay. So by default, if you are getting application from the if you're getting IP from the VMware, then you have to remember that. Okay. Okay. So what's the IP you got? This IP address, this machine got IP from 192.168.71.129. I'll go edit and virtual network editor, and you can see NAT. On the NAT, you can see here the option is checked. Use local DHCP service to distribute IP. From where it's giving IP? 192.168.71.02 That means from complete network, the IP is given. So one of the IP I got 129. Okay. So if you are using your own DHCP in your network, you remove this check mark. Okay. So I'm going to remove this check mark, and depends on like what setting you are using. I'm using NAT. I'll select NAT. I'll remove this check mark. Suppose if I'm using VMNet 1, then I'll remove this check mark. If I'm using bridge, then I'll be using, I'm going to remove the check mark from here. Okay. So you say apply and okay. Okay, still I got that IP. Now what I do, I just use another command, ipconfig/release. Release means now whatever IP I already got, I'm going to release that IP. Then you have to use the command ipconfig/renew. Now I want a new IP. Okay. So right now what the machine will do, the computer is going to broadcast. So it will try to forward a request to all the devices on a network, but nobody is going to respond. So why is nobody respond? Why? Because no DHCP right now. Okay. So if there is no DHCP in a network, and if you say your machine like you need IP, so what the machine will do? Now this machine will broadcast and it will try to contact to multiple DHCP. If you are not going to get IP, the machine, this computer automatically generate one IP address, and that IP address we call as a PPAM. And that IP address we have from range 169.254 something. Now it's coming in, it is going to contact. If the DHCP is there, so you don't have. Is still contacting. So now you can see got the error. So an error occur while renewing interface, unable to contact to the DHCP server request timer. But if I write IP config, so this computer have IP 169.254 something. So by seeing this IP address, you can say this is not given by DHCP, even this is not given by you. This is not a static IP, this is not a dynamic IP. This IP generated by computer itself after contacting to DHCP. If the DHCP is available, now the computer will automatically get IP. No need to do anything here. Okay. So let's go to our DHCP server. So what we need to do, we have to authorize the DHCP. Okay. So after the installation of DHCP, we need to authorize. So what is the first step? We already installed DHCP. Now we need to authorize. How to authorize? I'll show you. Then after authorizing, you have to make a scope. Then we'll talk about the reservation. Then we'll talk about how we take backup and restore of DHCP. So here, to authorize, there will be two main options here. So after the installation, from here only you can authorize by clicking this complete DHCP configuration, or you can even open your DHCP from server manager tool, and from here also you can able to authorize. Okay. So right click. So here the option is there, you can authorize. And how to know is it authorized and unauthorized? This signal, it will be in red color. You see, this is in red signal, down arrow. If it authorized, it will give you like right, green color right signal. So either you can do from here, right click and say authorize, or else from here also, like once you done the installation from server manager, here you can say complete DHCP configuration, and you can say next and commit. This is very simple. So authorizing DHCP is done. Close. So the first step we have done the installation. The second step we have done, we authorize the DHCP. Now the next very, very important thing is, now DHCP we actually use to give IP. So what IP you want DHCP to distribute? How many IP you want? That is the based on your network scenario. Okay. So now again I open the DHCP, and here you can see when you authorize, there will be a green signal, and it is like right symbol. So now we'll be configuring IPv4 range here. So the next step is we need to make a scope, and scope is nothing but is a range of IP that will be distributed by the DHCP to the client machine. So I'll right click on IPv4 scope. Then here I'm going to select a new scope. Welcome to new scope wizard. Next. So we can put any name here. Let's say I create scope 1, and this will for my head office. You can put any name for your understanding. Any name you can put it. And this is very, very important. Now, first of all, here you have to remember what is your network scenario, what IP you are using in your network. Okay. So right now I'm using IP from 10 series. So don't give a range from 192 or don't give range from class B. So try to give a range which is actually you are using in your network, so that when DHCP give IP to somebody, with the help of that IP, now the client, it is going to communicate to the network. Okay. Right now the network I'm using is 10. Okay. So starting, how many IP you want? Let's say I want DHCP give IP from 10.1.1.1 to 10.1.1.200. Okay. Instead of 200, let's say in a company I have 400 machines, so I cannot give here 400. So maximum it will accept 255. Okay. So whenever if you have more than 200 machines, then instead of 1 here we can make it as 2. So 1.255, then 2.255, total 500 machines. Then if you have suppose 1000 machine, I'll make it as 4. If you have 2000 machine, I can make it as 8. Okay. That means this is class A. One network in class A, we have 16 millions of addresses. Okay. So according to the requirement, you can able to configure the range of IP. Okay. So simply I'll be selecting so 10.1.1.2. Maybe I'll select 250 IP. The next option we have length. Length means, so when you use IP address we have some bits we use for the network and some bits we use as a host. So if you use class A, how many bits network? 8 bits network, remaining 24 bits host. Based on that, here it will show you net length is nothing but the network length, and subnet mask default is 255.0.0.0. This is class A. If I use class C class C IP address, here it will try to show you it will show you like 24, and the subnet mask will be like 255, 255, 255.0. That is the subnet mask. Okay. So we go with the default here. And remember, I'm using range from 1 to 250. Next. The next very, very important option we need to understand here, exclusion. So let us understand now what is exclusion. This is my network. On the network, let's say I have already given some IP to my server. In a network, I have machine. So my domain controller, I have already given IP address 10.1.1. In a network, I have exchange server. I have already given IP address 10.1.1.2. In a network, I have my backup server. I have given 3. I also have my application server. I have given 4. I have given 5. Like this, some machine I have already given as a static IP. Okay. But when I give a range, if you remember the range which I have given, I'm saying you give IP from 10.1.1.1 to 10.1.250. Okay. So the range which I have given from 10.1.1.1 to 10.1.1.250. So what will happen here? Suppose on a network, one machine will requesting IP. So what the DHCP will do? So the first computer DHCP will give IP 10.1.1.1. Second machine, maybe DHCP start giving IP 2. Third machine, DHCP start giving IP 3. But here, if you see, on my network, some machine I have already given static IPs. What happens if DHCP also gives the same IP? Why? Because DHCP, whatever range you give, from that range only DHCP try to distribute IP address. Okay. In this situation, what we need to do here, the exclusion comes. Okay. Exclusion is nothing but whatever range you have given, from this range, what IP you don't want DHCP distribute. Okay. Here I'll say I don't want DHCP distribute IP like 10.1.1 to 10.1.1.10. I don't want this 10 IP give by DHCP in a network. These IPs are already given. Okay. In this situation, suppose the second case come now, instead of 10.1.1.1, if I have given a range 10.1.11 to 250, now even we don't require exclusion. We don't require this. Why? Because DHCP,
it is not going to so normally what happened here, so if you have given a range like 10.1.1.1 to 250, so what will happen? So DHCP start giving IP from 11, 12, 13, 14 up to 250. So that means there is no case of like giving 1, 2, 3 IPs. Okay. So it depends on the situation. Sometimes we need to use the exclusion, or sometimes we don't need it. Okay. But in my case, what I have done, I already given IP address 10.1.1 to 10.250. So here I'll be using some exclusion so that I don't want DHCP give IP address 10.1.1 to 10.1.1.10. Okay. Let's say in a company, even I also have a router. For the router IP, I'll be giving like 10.1.1.1. Sorry, maybe I've given like 10.1.100. Even I don't want DHCP give 100. So what the DHCP will do now? So DHCP start giving IP address from 10.1.1.11, then it give 12, 13, 14, 15. Maximum it will give 10.1.1.99. Then it will leave 100. It will not assign 100 to anybody, but because 100 it is reserve. It's not reserved. 100 is already given. So except 100, DHCP will give another IP from 101 to 250. So that IP we call as exclusion. Next, the next option, as I told you, we also have least duration. So DHCP, when you configure, so this is my DHCP, and it will be giving IP address to my network. As I told you, so if DHCP giving IP address to anybody, something, so how long that IP will available? Okay. It will be available for 1 day, for 2 days, for 10 days, for 20 days. Okay. So the default validity will be 8 days. Minimum you can configure for 1 minute. Maximum you can configure for 999 days here. I can make it as 999. This will be 999. Maximum. Minimum I can go for 1 minute. So I will say 1 minute, maximum 999. So according to the requirement, maybe you have maybe like 2 days, 5 days, 10 days, anybody. Okay, that is based on the requirement. So I'll be giving 10 days validity. Next, and the next option it will ask you. This is related to the range which I have given. From the range, DHCP will give IP. But DHCP is not only for giving IP. DHCP we use to configure IP configuration. So DHCP can also give router IP. DHCP can also give the DNS IP, alternate DNS. So if you have these IP addresses in your network, you have to say yes, I want DHCP give this configuration to my network. So you have to say yes, I want to configure this scope now. So in your network, whatever the router IP you have to give it. So in my case, just only for example, I'll be giving. So right now I'll be using my router 10.1.100. I'll say. So when DHCP give IP, so not only it assign IP, it also give an address or DNA router as 10.1.100. Next. So this is the DNS address. DNS it is going to assign. Why? Because this is only my DNS server. So by default it's taken. So right now the IP address which I'm using for my DNS server is 10.1.1.1. This is my DNS server IP. Next. And the last option it will ask you WINS. So WINS is outdated. So WINS it was a service which is actually used for resolving a partially qualified domain name. Okay? So we are not using a WINS service in today's network. So WINS service is outdated. So leave it as it is. We are not using any service, but because for name resolution we'll be using a DNS service. But before DNS there was a name. There was WINS service. Next. Again. So the last option it will ask you. So client can obtain IP address only if scope is activated. So the scope which I'm creating, so DHCP distribute IP when the scope is activated. So here you have to say yes, I'm going to activate a scope now. Next and finish. Okay. So this is how we are going to configure the scope. So once you join a company, so company already configure the DHCP, already you know you have a scope created, already you know you may have all the settings connected. So what is the responsibility of administrator? So when you open your DHCP server, so here you have to go scope. So the scope I created on the 10 series. So the first folder in scope we call it as address pool. So this folder give you the information of the IP address information. Okay, that means what range I have given. From that range, okay, so how many IPVs excluded, and so the total number of scope range, the range which I have given here. So 10.1.1 to 10.1.250. This is the total range. From this range, how many IP I don't want DHCP give? That is called exclusion. So 1 to 10, it will not assign. Then even it will not give 100. So if you forget to if you forget to exclude, from here also you can even exclude. Let's say there are some printer I have already given. There are some server I have already given IP. There is a firewall I have already given one IP. So if you don't want that IP given to a network machine, you can even exclude that IP here. The next folder we have address leases. So this folder give you information like how many machine already got IP. So whatever IP given by DHCP, so that IP address will be the information of that IP will be maintained. Okay. So I have given range from 11 to 250. So from 11 to 250, how many IP given? So that information will be available, like the name of the client, what IP given, when IP is going to expire, what is the MAC address, all the information. So till now, DHCP has not given any IP. Why? Because just we configured. Similarly, from here we can reserve IP, and here you have information of your router IP, DNS IP. You can even modify. Okay. So after the configuration, what I do, I'll try to go to my DNS. I'm going to go my client, and here on the client machine, we need to log in. So you can log into any machine, and let us see, like we are going to see how the computer will get IP. So before I go network connection, so simply I open a command prompt. And if I write IP config, so this machine is having IP address. So how to know this is it a static IP or dynamic IP? Whenever if you go any client machine and if you go and if you see IP address, so directly don't say this is static, even don't say it's a dynamic. Why? Because maybe given by you or maybe given by DHCP. There will be two chances. Okay. So just seeing only IP address, you cannot say direct it's a static or dynamic. So when we say instead of like writing IP config, you can use a command IP config/all. If I use this command, now here you may have some information. So let us see. So the IP address of this computer is 10.13. So the most important thing here you have to see this. DHCP enable. If it's a no, that means this is not given by DHCP. This is not a dynamic IP. This is given by you manually here. Okay. Now I have another machine. Yeah, that is a static IP. So previously, like we put already on. So previously, the machine got IP generated from itself. Why? Because there was no DHCP. Now here, if I write IP config, now this machine got IP. But again, I told you, so this IP is not a static or it's not a dynamic. You cannot say direct. So what I can do here, I can write a command IP config/all. So when I use this command, here you come to know whether it's a static IP or dynamic. So how we can say? So here, the option is available here. DHCP enable. DHCP is enable. Yes. So this IP we call as dynamic IP. And the most important thing, like whenever you have dynamic IP, you actually get this lease and opt-in duration. When I got IP, so I got IP address on Wednesday, May 6, and it will be expire on May 16. That means 10-day validities. No. So the question comes, so right now I got IP address and it will be available till May 16. Okay. So what happened after May 16? Okay. So what happened here? So like after the duration of 50%, okay, maybe after 5 days, this machine try to request to DHCP server automatically, please renew my IP. It is going to expire in 5 days, or maybe in So before the IP get expired, now the DHCP automatically renew IP automatic. Okay, even there is no procedure. Okay, on the network you never have issue like your IP expired. So that IP is automatically renewed. Okay. So this is a static IP. So what we need to do here, we have to open the network connection. So ncpa.cpl, just open, and so graphically, if you want to know whether static dynamic, you can directly say. So is this static dynamic? Directly you say this is static. So here I'll say opt-in IP address dynamic. Okay, and close. So when you click, how much time it take? So it will take only a fraction of second. So now the request will go to my DHCP. Now if I write IP config, So this computer got IP address 10.1.1.14. The static dynamic, then you can use a command ipconfig/all. So here you come to know this is the dynamic IP. So this IP I got on Wednesday, then it will be expired on Saturday, 10 days validity. Okay. Similarly, whatever machines you have, you can go every machine and you can check the IP address. Okay. Instead of that, now instead of going to all the devices, so even from server also I can check it. So that information you have inside your lease address leases. So if I refresh, so now I come to know DHCP has given 4 IP. One of the IP given to like 10.1.11, one of the IP given to win something, 12 given, 13 given, 14 given, all these IP given to different machines. So when IP is going to expire, 16th May, this is American timing, on the different time, right? Similarly, this is called unique ID means the MAC address. MAC address is also useful. Okay. Now the next practical we'll see reservation. How to reserve? So we already create scope. We given the IP. Now the next we have reservation. How to reserve IP address? So when Microsoft introduced DHCP in 2008 or in old version, you have to manually reserve the IP of a particular device, and the reservation we need to go directly from here only. Okay? But in 2012 and 2016, one of the Microsoft has given option here. Let's say PC3, the computer got IP 10.1.1.14. Okay. So now what the machine will do? So right click here only I can say add to reservation. So whatever the computer got IP, so this IP are reserved. So what will happen after the duration also? Whenever the machine need IP, always the computer will get IP 10.1.1.14. That is called the reservation. If you don't want this IP to reserve, from here you can even reserve a particular IP. Okay. Reservation. Let's say I'm going to reserve to PC3. What IP you want to reserve? I want to reserve like 10.1.1.30. Okay. Now, what is the MAC address of this machine? So MAC address is available here. You can see and write it. Based on the MAC address, now the reservation will take place. So 000 C29. So MAC address is one of the address which is specially available for a device, and that is a unique only. So 4850A. Add it. So if I refresh, so still the machine saying inactive. Why? Because so the computer like PC3, so host name, so PC3, and if I say get MAC, the MAC address of this computer is 000C293485OA, the MAC we have given. So even if I write like IP config, so still I got IP 10.1.1.14. So why not 10.1.1.30? Why? Because this IP is still available. When it is going to expire? So this IP will expire on Saturday, May 16. So I cannot wait for May 16. So what I can do here, I'll use command ipconfig/release. Release means now whatever I have, I'm going to release that IP. Then I'm going to use the second command ipconfig/renew. Renew means now again it will contact to DHCP. So from DHCP, suppose if there is a reservation, then it will give that IP. If no reservation, DHCP can give any IP from range. So now it is going to check the MAC address. See, I got the IP address 10.1.1.30. So every time this computer will get only the 10.1.1.30 only. That is called reservation. So even though this computer is not available, so that IP will not be given to anybody in network by DHCP. Okay. The last option we have backup. How to take a backup of your DHCP. Okay. So just now like we configure a DHCP service and DHCP is giving IP. Let's say DHCP has given all my 200 IPs. What happens if my DHCP scope is deleted or something happened? Maybe somebody deleted or maybe by mistake something happened. So every time you have to think about the backup. So backup is not only about like files and folder that you that we have done last time. So backup even you also have for services. So what we do, we open the DHCP here. So one more thing you remember, in 2016, in 2012, the DHCP backup is automatic. Every 60 minutes means like every 1 hour, the backup of DHCP is automatically taken. And where it is going to save? So the backup of DHCP will automatically save, like when you go properties. So we have a separate option here. So you can see here. So this is the backup location. This is the database. On the same database, the backup is also maintained. Every 1 hour, the backup of your complete DHCP is going to be take place. So we cannot wait for 1 hour. So what we can do now, let's say I want to take a backup right now. So how we can take a backup? So simply I'll right click on my DHCP server, and here we have the option backup. So automatically, I told you, it will store the backup on the system32 folder, DHCP and backup. So if you want, you can even store the backup in your different location. You can store the backup in different folder in C drive or D drive, wherever you want. You can able to maintain the backup. So I want to go with the same default. I'll just say okay. So backup is very simple. Once you have done the backup, now if you refresh here, it's saying active. Now let's say suppose I deleted something, all the ranges. Now I deleted my scope, even I deleted the ranges, I deleted the exclusion. Okay. Or maybe let's say, even if you want, you can delete complete scope. So what will happen, like if your scope is deleted, can you get IP here? So whatever the client you have, so will you get the IP here? So no, you cannot get IP. Why? Because now the complete range is deleted. DHCP is available, but it's not responsible for giving IP. So what we'll do now? So if you have a backup, we can restore it. No backup, again, you have to configure, scope. You need to think about the ranges, and you need to think about that, exclusion, everything you have to. I have a backup. I'll right click, and I'll say restore. So where is your backup? Again, I have a backup on the same location. I'll just say okay. So in order for change to take effect, the service must be stopped and restarted. Would you like to do this now? Yes. So what it will do? Only for a fraction of a second, the service is stop and restart. Again, it is going to record the complete backup. The backup is done. Now, if I open, if I go here, all the ranges done, range, scope, everything. So how many IP given by DHCP? All this IP. So this is about DHCP. So DHCP plays very, very important role. It is not only used for giving IP, it also maintains the database of your network IP, what IP given to whom, when IP is going to expire, and the MAC address and all the information. Okay. So this is our today's session. So hope you understand.